Today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using this picture that I drew and coloured in using Spectrum Noir Illustrator pens. And if you want to see how I did this and how I got this picture done, then I'll link the video to this from my other channel at the end of this video. And this picture actually comes from one of my colouring books that are available on my website, really quite reasonably priced as well. And I've used this picture quite a lot for different things, but today what I'm going to be doing is testing to see how well it will cast in resin, and I'm going to make a resin Egyptian themed tray. But before I do that, I want to actually cut this picture out because I don't want to have the white background going on, and all I'm going to use to cut this out with is a scalpel. Now I don't mind if there's a little bit of white going on around it. That's absolutely fine. Well, now these have been cut out, what I'm going to do is seal them. And what I'm going to use to seal them is the crystal clear seal, protects and enhances. There are lots of sealers that you can use, and I will link those in the description below. But the reason I want to seal them is because I don't want this ink to run if I can help it, because it is an alcohol ink and it may run in the resin. Once I've sealed those, I'm then going to make some of these molds up, but I'm not going to make the molds up full. I'm only going to cast into the actual heads themselves rather than the bits around the sides, because I want to put this into a tray. And to do that, if I cast right the way through, they are far too deep and it won't give a level tray. I'm going to prep my molds, and what I'm going to be using for that is just mica powder, and I love using mica powder in a mold. Now I want this to look not exactly all nice and neat and tidy, and give it a bit of mica powder in different places. And I'm using these little micro brushes because I find them really good to get into areas where you couldn't normally get a little soft brush like a makeup brush, which is what I use. Again, I will link these in the description below. Nicely gently tap out the excess as well, because I don't want the excess floating around. And I'm going to make these with polyurethane resin because I want these to be nicely cured up, ready for when I put the first coat in of the tray and the pictures are sealed. And then again, gently tap them out. This is me being gentle. Right, that should do it. And I'm going to mix up a bit of white mica powder and a bit of black mica powder because I want a kind of a grey colour for the PU resin. Yeah, that should do it. Just to give it a bit of a colour before I pour that in. Remember, when using polyurethane resin, you do have a short pop time with it because it will be cured up in this mould within about an hour. So I've mixed it up with my grey mica powder. I'm making sure that it's got into all the little intricate bits, and now I'm going over it with my long neck lighter just to ensure there are no bubbles on it. I'd just like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to all my members. I hope you're enjoying this sessions that we're doing on how to set up your own business. We've got another one coming up this Saturday, and how to sell your resin products. So I'm now just checking that these are the right level for this mold, and if they're not, then I can adjust it at this point. And this is what I'm doing now. I'm just giving one of them a little sand so it is at the right level. And remember, when you're using resin and sanding it or doing anything like this, wear a mask. This is me in my mask, people. I always wear a full face mask, as you know, because my eyes and skin is very sensitive to all resin. So I have this on all the time, and that's why I do a lot of voiceovers. So now I'm pouring in my resin here, and what I'll do is I'll make sure that I've got an even layer over the whole mold, and then pop any bubbles. I'm putting in the cast little figures. And this is where I mess up the first time, and you'll see why in a little while. And I'm popping them in, and I'm just making sure they're laying flat. Now, one of them, the Tutankhamun head, actually isn't laying flat, and I'll show you how I deal with that in a minute. But again, I mess up a second time by putting the figure here where it shouldn't be. It should be over the other side. And I pop it down, And then I mess up again because once I pop it down, I forget to do the little squidgy widgy of it to push out any air bubbles that would be trapped underneath. But that wasn't too much of a problem in the end. And now popping the second figure in, and because this is on a nice level surface, these figures will stay where they are because this is quite a viscous resin. And now I'm using just a popsicle stick on this, leaning against the edge of the mould and keeping this level, because if not, it will tip over on its nose. Well, this is all cured now in its first layer, and you can see from underneath it seems to be okay. There does seem to be a couple of bubbles that maybe I didn't push out, but I'm not too worried about that. But what I did do was, what I normally do is I have all my corners facing out in different ways, and I was silly because I should have had these two facing round that way, because it's only ever going to be looked at that way up. But there we go, it's just one of those things. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put another layer on top, but this time I'm going to have sand in that layer to give it like a backing. I'm mixing up my sand, and what I'm using is I'm using a 1-to-1 ratio. So I'm using the same amount of sand as I've got resin in this little pot. Now remember, when you're stirring in sand, do it as slowly as possible. It's like folding in egg whites into a cake. Not that I'd ever know, because I've never baked a cake. And I'm plopping this in and trying to get it out, and as you can see, it's thick, muddy consistency. And then what I will do is I will then use my stick and a plastic palette knife to spread this right the way over and get this as flat and even as I possibly can, because when it's this thick, it will not naturally level. So if you want a flat base, make sure that you go over it and flatten it out as much as possible, burst bubbles, and let it cure up. Well, this is all cured now, and I'm ready to fully take it out of the mould. I have had a little peek at it because I couldn't resist, so let's get this right out of the mould. And the mould's come out lovely and clean again. That's because I never use a torch on the mould. And let's turn it over. The only thing is, what a stupid thing to do was to put these two in upside down. I'd rather show you when I do stupid things as well. Now, there are a couple of trap bubbles underneath it, but I don't mind those at all. Even though they're there, I should have squidged and pushed this down a little bit more and got rid of those, but that's fine. I really think that's come out nice. Now, you could use this as a tray because it is completely flat, as I showed you on how to get these flat. But actually, I've decided not to use it as a tray. I'm going to use it. I'm going to put a little, like a leg or a stand behind there and just use it as a plaque. This has worked out really, really well. They've not run, they've not been spoilt at all by the resin. Sealing them with the spray both sides does help a great deal. And if you'd like to know how I coloured these in and what I used, then the video I will link at the end of this video. It's on my other channel, and also the link to where you can get the image that I drew from my colouring books on mythical creatures is also in the description below. Shame about these, but I am a bit of a fool at times. But I'd rather show you my things when they go wrong than cover it up and make out that I never make mistakes, because I do make mistakes. Quite a lot, really. Be sure to check out the video on how to colour these in that's coming up next. And if you'd like to buy me a coffee just to help support this channel and keep this channel going, allow me to buy new things so you can appreciate and enjoy this free content, then the link for that is in the description below, along with the link to all the things that I've used today. Take care, enjoy your resin. Bye.